It's streaming.
It's streaming?
Yes, we're streaming. And now I'm going to send this to some other locations. What? Oh yeah, we did. I wouldn't mind having some. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, you can have as much as you want. So identifying influence is a big part of T&O's astronaut training program, is what I named this. What we named it. Well, yes, no, I mean, right.
Quite a lag.
And it's also quite a decent volume. This laptop doesn't put out very good volume.
Sit back here, so hopefully maybe it won't.
So, what are you going to do? Oh, you're going to have some crackers and,
I'm gonna have some crackers.
and nut butter? Someone in the chat already. I'll look at it in a second. Oh, I didn't. I got my. It's taking forever to load, though. I can't get X to load. There it is, finally. That's maybe why, huh? And you know what comes up? Somebody's post that says non-human intelligence, biggest story of all time. Somebody in the X is posting.
Oh.
And yeah, I'll definitely have to talk about that a little bit. Because I agree that non-human intelligence is the biggest story of all time. And the religions call that some form of God. And now we have the physical aspect of it coming in that T and Do brought, but it identifies the space aliens' souls with their hybridized human equivalent vehicles as also part of the biggest story. Let's see if Facebook takes an hour to come up. No, no.
With that attitude.
I shouldn't have put that out. It's taken a long time. Now there it is. It came up finally.
It's such a sad. Maybe I should turn it
It's pretty warm out there.
on.
Okay, I'm able to post that. Took a while, but now I just need to pop out my chat and then I'll be ready to talk. Oh, look who's here. XFC97. Yeah, here's the first person to come in. Greetings to you. Kathy was saying she was just thinking about you. Hmm. Hmm. Yesterday. Pop out chat. I'm almost done just configuring this. And Rise Above is here. Good to see Rise Above. Hey, perfect timing. I was watching the HBO documentary again, and I noticed it seemed like you wanted to say more during the marriage ceremony with Doe Sawyer. If you aren't comfortable, that's okay. I'll think about that. I want to read what else you said, but I want to hear if you wanted to share. I apologize. I meant it seemed as if you wanted to speak more about it, and they cut you off. I literally just watched and felt that was unfair to you. Yeah, I don't actually remember uh, what all I said there because I always gave them a lot more than they wanted. They always wanted just short sound bites that they could then just put on, anywhere they want to, and it can fit in. They don't really want context for things, and so that was all left on the cutting room floor. So yes, I always want to say more because I know that it's not as simple as yes and no, and we did this and that was it because you know it's even if I tell my whole recollection of everything I think about in terms of the things that happened, I'm still only touching the surface because my view wasn't the ultimate view. And so, I mean, so I don't know what I left out that they didn't publish. I don't even remember what was in that tape exactly. The marriage ceremony. Um, what can I say about it? Um, well, well, when I was partnered with somebody, regardless of the marriage ceremony, because that was just two partners expressing what we already knew, that they were committed to help the partner. Um, actually, the true marriage was help the partner be married to Doe and T. Um, so that's what was said that they were that. So that was the first time that Doe had us set that up for us to express to another partner out loud in public. Otherwise, we never talked about it in public, or even in that way. That I would never have said to another partner that I'm committed using that word, like because that's what marriage is really about. It's a commitment. Um, and T is the individual that instructed us, not told us, gave us the instruction if we wanted to be in her group, in her classroom, if we wanted to look to her, T, as our older member. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way because T didn't get anything out of our looking at T as those older member. She knew she was, T knew she was Doe's older member, and Doe had to learn it for himself, not because T told him. And that's the same relationship that Doe had with students, that he knew he was an older member from the next level, and if we had committed to be for him to be a lab instructor, because that's what it really is. That's the details of it. That's the job description, is lab instructor. And the lab is conquering our influences, the discarnates, the space alien souls' minds, any humans that are trying to work against us to keep us from going in the direction we want to go in. So that's the training program, how to do that. And that is something that I wanted to talk about in this overview of tape. What was it again? 282. Oh, I forgot to do something with that. I've got to fix that. Okay, that's good on that. So let me go back to that chat. I got more to say on that, but um, so so that you're right. That was the first time for that. Now, so what I was going to say about um, all some of the things that were behind that, well, not behind it, but because that's not for me to say. I could guess, and I would be probably, well, I would say to guess was Doe felt like it was instruction to have us have that expression of one to another as a commitment to help them make our commitment to Doe. So to point and see that was partners, and T and Doe started that together because they required partners to be. They didn't require it, but they gave part of the lessons were that we don't know about that much about ourselves and how we come across and the influences that we have, and that's really evidenced in this tape that individuals didn't know what their greatest influences were, but some in the class knew, some other students knew, and even some other students didn't really know how to bottom line it, but Doe knew how to bottom line it, and students left. Cadoti didn't leave. It wasn't long after Cadoti left. I mean, after this meeting we got listed here as happening on December 20th, 1987, tape number 282. It wasn't long after that Cadoti was given instructions to live in a halfway situation, and the class helped him with the finances of setting up an apartment. At first, he went to stay with Branody because Branody had already had an apartment. And, but Branody's situation wasn't really the same kind of halfway situation. Uh, but Doe didn't really like that word, halfway, because nobody that was sent out of the group, like to a so called halfway situation, or sent out of the group to because they didn't want to follow procedures, as happened as well. Um, um, so um, they weren't sent out of the class. They were sent out of the craft or crafts that the older members were holding their astronaut training program in. And so they weren't in those quarters. It would be like, imagine, having a laboratory and letting dogs run around in it. They don't know how to stop barking, and they're chewing on stuff they shouldn't chew on, and all the things that you can imagine. Sounds kind of silly, right? Um, they might defecate on the floor, and so humans have the same kind of bad behaviors relative to the kingdom above them that um, that humans have with animals. So uh, it's probably even a bigger gap because humans are like the head animals. They've got the potential to outgrow their animal instincts and behaviors and ways, but animals are only that are domesticated by humans are have the opportunity to develop their minds by uh, leaving their total self identity to please the master, because they know that if they please the master human, that they're going to get there's benefits to it, things that they like. And Kathy was talking about that in the last live stream with her cat Evie. So I'm just trying to put things in the most accurate context that I can. Um, but for me, when I was put with somebody that I didn't have any chemistry with, my vehicle I'm talking about, or somebody that, in my judgment, um, uh, didn't seem to be one of the older students. Not that I was either. But see, all the students probably, I can't say all, because some may have overcome this and so they never dealt with it. But I bet a bunch of students, I can be safe to say, um, had opinions on uh, other students and how old they were. Old meaning experienced in the next level behaviors and ways. And Doe said that there were older students. T said it while T and Doe was still working together in their vehicle. Said that some of you are older. I don't remember the exact words she used than others, but that that they were teaching to the oldest ones, um, and uh, and then trying to help those that were trying to keep up with that keep up. They didn't want to lose any students that wanted to be there and prove to them that they wanted to be there. It wasn't just a matter of being there and then being there every day. And then, sure, there was long periods of time where uh, uh, there was not a huge challenge to being there, but for some people it was. Like in 1976, when uh, some students were told that they were not told, they were just sent to a different campground from the bigger group. 19 students were sent out of the group to not be in the craft, so to speak, which the campgrounds represented wherever we were spread out through the national forest in Wyoming. They weren't going to be in that situation anymore, or for however long T and Del felt like it, because they kept track of them and they had some communication with them. but they had a different kind of communication with them than they were having with us, but I don't know what that was unless T&R talked about it, and they did talk about it a little bit, but I don't remember it, the details of that. And a few details I do know, I don't want to spend a lot of time on because it's not that pertinent. But so T&R were always presenting things that were challenging somebody. I think that's safe to say. And and even though they wanted, like Doe wanted to get out of the task of prodding students, which he talked about in the tape before this one.
Which I thought was funny because that was, but that he was using the same words in the tape.
Yeah, yeah, the prodding. But so the teachers in any really good school, if they expect to get, if they expect the students to be their best at whatever class they're taking, if they hope for that for their students, then they're gonna they're gonna come up with things that are challenging. I mean, whole testing system is challenging, right? So, but I was talking to somebody today that I was delivering to their job or home or something like that, uh, and they were a big fan of the baseball, and they were talking about all the games that the team lost and won, and how the fans expect the team to go to the playoffs every year, and I was saying to them that yeah, they get. He was telling me that ever since they got a new manager, the team is doing a lot better. And so I said to him, yeah, I guess the manager is a good manager when they are prodding their players, to do better. Because if they don't do that, then the player standards may vary one to the next. If they don't have workouts to the degree that the managers feel is accomplishing the task of being the best that they can be, then that's not going to be a very good manager. And so Doe didn't. That wasn't a natural task, as I said in the last stream, to next level members, to prod students, even though the next level does that to all humans. But it's not, they don't like doing that. It's a part of the job of raising children, even. And that's what they're doing. They're raising children to become adults, to work alongside them. And they don't need anybody to do that. They could go on with, there could be nobody that joins them uh, that accomplishes enough of the success with the astronaut training program among them. And even if one is successful, they have a celebration for that one arriving in the next level because they're real people. They're physical beings that have grown their souls to be very powerful in ways that humans don't understand. But some of the power is um, that they get assigned a physical grown vehicle that the next level grows that has facilities to do things that a human vehicle doesn't have the facility to do because their minds grew to learn how to control it. It's like you see an athlete that learns how to control their body, right? And another person that never really tried to control their body in that way. So that person isn't going to be able to do the same things that person that trained their body to do certain things can do. And the same with the mind. There's people that have trained their minds to do things that others can't do, regardless of how much money they make and how many schools they went to and how many tail feathers they have at the end of their names, it's irrelevant. You could have somebody that's poor and on the street and knows more than the people that are in the White House of the things that matter. There's a lot of things that are happening, uh, in the boardrooms of the corporations don't really matter to the next level. I think it's kind of safe to say. But so I don't know. So in other words, when I was with somebody, a partner that um, my vehicle um, liked being with, and it wasn't always female. I liked being with sorority, even though sorority and I had different things. The things that we had to work on between us, I think, were very small. Like sorority was, like fast. He thought fast. He acted fast, and so he was put with me. And I don't think fast, and I don't act fast, and sorority had a lesson actually that he didn't act fast enough. I mean, no, he acted too fast, and he was thinking too fast to where he was like finishing those sentences sometimes during a meeting, and whether he was being accurate about doing that or not didn't matter. You didn't do that with an older member, and you didn't do it with each other either. T&O didn't have double standards really. I mean, there were certain ways that you would act with an older member that you um, wouldn't necessarily act with a student. Like if a fellow student said to you, "No, the instruction is to do thus and so." Well, you would have to go into your brain, your computer, your mind, to review that instruction because it was written down somewhere uh, most of the time. Um, and we had books and books and books full of procedures. Those were instructions. They came as instructions to begin with. And we had also the instruction sheets where if an instruction was given, everybody would read that every day, at least once a day. You weren't limited to how often you read it to see what new instructions were coming down because this was a very, very operational organization. And so, if a fellow student said the instruction for measuring flour was this and this and this, these steps, in order to come out with a consistent product in the end in the bakery, that was used as a lab in the context of needing to be exact about following instructions so that we can come up with the kind of thing that the next level is hoping that we're going to come up with. So we're not going to design a species of animal that's got 40 eyes when those eyes are conflicting with each other. That's just an example. I think that was one of the, they didn't say 40 eyes, but I think they said something about eyes on a body. They didn't want somebody coming up with their own ideas of how many eyes there should be. Because the next level knows about things like that. And you could be part of the lab that would examine whether some more eyes, like for instance, a horseshoe crab has 11 eyes. It's got an eye on the tip of its tail, and it's got a bunch of eyes around its head area. And I think it's got some others. So they can look in all directions. They're a real remote vehicle.
Like, how more obvious can you get when there's just X's in the sky?
They're not spraying anything. Right, right. I know. That's right. Right. See, that's a telltale sign that they're laying some stuff down there, putting their aluminum in the sky, trying to make it rain or something. Or
It is forecast for rain in 2 days.
so that's why they're doing it because those fronts are coming here already. So now they think that they can actually try to make their experiments work to where they can have more rain, or that's what they kind of try to do. And there's been some evidence that they may have flooded some people to death in some areas
Russia it
by
happened.
doing that.
Wiped out a whole village.
Yeah, they say that Russia wiped out a whole village, right? I keep on forgetting that. The microphone's good now. They can hear you talk.
Oh, that's good.
And I'm yelling. But, so, so I could feel myself going through things when I would get a certain partner. It wasn't that I was going through things. I would just be really happy to be with that person, where I wouldn't be so happy to be with somebody else. I just know I was responding that way, but at the time, I didn't realize I was doing that, although I could have realized it because it was something that was going through my computer that if I had been uh, sensitive in that to what was going through my head, I would have examined it more and even brought it to T and O's attention to ask them about, was this a thought that would come to their minds about that change in partners. That would be an example that some students were doing things like that. I don't know what they were doing because everybody had their own personal writing experience. We didn't show our notes to partners. On occasion we did if T&O had suggested it. And it wasn't that we couldn't. There might have been a time when it wasn't meant to be that way. And there were some kind of notes that we would send about some things like sensuality that we wouldn't share with our partner to not spread that way of thinking um, that can stimulate others in that same regard just by hearing things. You get more and more sensitive the more and more you withdraw from something, in a sense, even though you also have more and more strength to stay withdrawn from an addiction, whatever that addiction is, alcohol, drugs, uh, to somebody else, you know, um, whatever it is, um, sexuality, Anyway, so, and then if I was with somebody that I liked being with, then it would show where I wouldn't want to really, I wouldn't even see, I wouldn't even be thinking. I wasn't really thinking that way anyway with my partners. I just wasn't someone that it was keen, I guess, to what others might be doing, or the look on their face, or whether they were down in the bow wows or not. Because these were all things that um, are signs of not wanting to be in the classroom if they continue, and are signs of what fellow students didn't understand. Uh, um, are signs of what other students didn't recognize were influences. Like like in this tape, you can see that Doe is talking to specific students that were in the meeting. Everybody wasn't there, I don't think. I think that was a Southcraft meeting. 'Cause they had 3 crafts at the time. But and I think one was Doe's craft with a certain amount of students in it. 4, 6, maybe, I don't know how many
Well,
were
you guys
there.
had just moved.
Right, we had just moved to new locations, but I think it was in the Dallas area, right?
I don't. I don't know.
That's the way I remember it, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, you were there,
Yeah, I know, but
but still,
I
you
get
guys
mixed up.
moved quite a bit.
Yeah, I get mixed up on some of that. But because we moved so many times, we had so many houses over the years. Probably averaged moving, uh, probably more frequent, on average, probably like 3 months. But sometimes maybe 6 months. Sometimes maybe even less, even as little as 1 month, like in Atlanta. But so when that partnership would be over, because almost every partnership was over at some point, they even discontinued having partners. Doe did at one point. But the object, I forgot to say what the partners were for in the beginning. They were to be a mirror, is the way that they described it, a mirror, to reflect to each other, um, so that the partner could mirror back to us what they see in us, what they see us doing. I did talk about it a little bit, but the mirror part is very important to that. That's the way Tiendo described it. Um, and I mean, so if a practical example in the very beginning was, since we were leaving the past behind, that would mean that if you brought up the past, it would be if you asked the partner, you had to ask your partner for this help, even though some partners really like to give it and others didn't. You know, because some partners, you know, they have an influence that, uh, well, you know, um, I'm not saying they're getting off on it, but it's just part of their structure to, if they see something that's not right, to bring it up to the person. You know, and some of that can be a good thing, I think. I'm not saying it's all bad or good, but in the next level, you don't bring up something to somebody else in the next level spacecraft unless they are asking you for that input. And you would be in the habit of asking for that input. You would want that input because you want to know the things that are, to some degree, potentially an interference with what's going on. Not assuming that you're doing anything that is an interference, but in case you are, because you know from experience that you don't know everything, you don't perceive everything, you're not sensitive to all the thoughts and actions that others are sensitive to, and you don't even necessarily know that others are sensitive to different thoughts and actions unless they express it to you. So let's say you say something that's sarcastic to somebody that's brought up in this audio tape 282, that the student didn't know that sarcasm was one of his biggest problems. Problems being influences that were not from the next level. Because there are no influences from the next level except for when members of the next level, older members of the next level deliver their information, then they are potentially influencing all humans. Okay? And when they help humans in ways that are invisible to humans, with their problems when that individual is asking in whatever way they are asking, uh, whatever terminology they use, when they help them, they're also potentially influencing them. But they're like, it's like influencing individuals that they are growing to love because they're like domesticated animals compared to humans that were were being good animals. You know, they were doing good things for the human, and so the human loves them. And so the older members of the next level and the student members, the younger members of the next level, love to see humans and souls using human vehicles and wanting to know the behaviors and ways of the next level and wanting to put them in motion. And it's all a process. So, and gaining sensitivity on things and also gaining sensitivity to the arguments that the influences give us to justify ourselves. And so older members have been through it before because this wasn't their first incarnation in the human kingdom. I don't know how many times Doe was incarnate in a human vehicle uh, to where he understood the kinds of things that a human vehicle goes through. That's why they take a human vehicle, so they have a hands-on, accurate way of communicating to humans that have beginner souls associating with them how to conquer their problems. So they have to actually grow up in the environment and conquer those problems unless the design of that stage of the experiment was like Jesus was doing, to where he was going to uh, be seen as perfect. He wasn't going to have any flaws. Because the next level did things with that birth to help that vehicle be more advanced than all the other vehicles that were from that gene pool at that time. Because that's the only way that the vehicle could actually recognize the value of certain perspectives, even have certain perspectives. Like you can't have this perspective. I think can't is a good word at this point. You can't have the perspective of what happens in the next level laboratory unless somebody from that laboratory is coming to you in your ear, and not in just in your ear, but in person to talk to you about it. Because in this world that's saturated with the discarnates, which are deceased humans that don't know a lot of things necessarily about the next level. They're I don't know how that works exactly with which whether discarnates from the 1500s. I don't know if they're still hanging around. Trying to influence people to do what? Do the things they did in the 1500s? Well, yeah, it's possible. Or if other spirits are a little more powerful than them because they've come along further with experience in the spirit world and in the human condition, which is an evolution of the spirit world, or devolution from the spirit world. So, they could probably offer both perspectives that are a little bit higher perspectives of what are the most important things to think about and do, and having a sense of, well, I don't really want to play that game to climb the corporate ladder to make a bunch of money when I've got to work 64 hours doing something that I really like to do every day, to try to build up this empire. I'd like to have a bunch of money, but it's not that worth it to me I can't even tune into it. It's like, it's not something that, I'm not putting anybody down that does that. That's the path they're taking. They can get into their paths, and they all have to get out of their paths if they're going to grow towards next level membership more and more. And the next level are in charge of prodding them, actually. And there's all kinds of ways that they prod each other in those regards. And that's, in a sense, when the truth comes out about something and you found out that somebody was lying, well, the whatever's the truth about a circumstance is what happened. That's what's real. What people think about it, what people say about it, what people try to get you to say about it, is not what's real necessarily, but it's what they interpret it to be. And it was funny that Kathy was showing me a video of Carly B. Was it
Cardi B.
Cardi B being um, on the stand in the court where she's being accused of cutting someone's face
With their nails.
with her nails. Um, and the attorney that's drilling her is like trying to get her to say things, that any little thing that she can say, they're going to try to use against her to paint a picture of whether maybe part of it is to paint a picture of whether she's a reliable witness to what happened, or what's the truth of what happened. So they ask her all these stupid questions. Does she know what admissions are? Does she know what interrogatories are? Those are parts of the discovery process of a lawsuit. We know about that process from Kathy and I and Carloti going through it, still going through it. But so she didn't know anything about those, but I don't know if they were using that like for a lie detector kind of thing or something. I don't know if they want to
No,
trip her up.
because they were going through discovery.
They're going through discovery, but why did they have to know whether she knew it? She had a lawyer. The lawyer has to know about those things. She
Yeah,
doesn't
I'm
have to
just
know
saying
about those
it's
things.
not.
Anyway, what I'm saying is that they were they were pushing her to try to slip her up. Next Level doesn't do that. They don't push anybody to try to slip them up. But they know that when they give students ways of thinking, or that does present an opportunity for that student to rise to the occasion of recognizing the truth in what the older member is saying, and getting to that, and then believing that older member knows the truth of that situation. And this is also talked about in this tape. And I have a direct example of that when I didn't fully believe at first in what Dose explained about my departure after I left. He had a tape that talked about my departure. And when I first heard it, I knew that one part of me knew that uh, it was true, but simultaneous to that, I thought that Doe, I had the thoughts that Doe didn't, I don't think, something I said, Doe didn't understand. He didn't recognize what I was really saying in this circumstance, that he was saying added up to this. And then later, when I listened to that tape again, I thought about it and probably listened to it a third time over years, over a couple of years, not that many years. I realized that he was exactly right, and that uh, I mean, I'm not saying exactly right with the motivational part of why I told him I wanted to do something that I wanted to do. Uh, I mean, the way that it might look like, I don't want to get into the details of that right now. But uh, the point was that um, I learned that I wasn't sensitive to the degree that Doe was sensitive. And I don't know if I had a lesson that strongly before, because even though I was sitting in some of these meetings, because even if this was just held for one segment of the craft, usually those meetings were available on tape, but maybe not in all cases. I don't remember clearly if all the Northcraft tapes were shared with the Southcraft folks. I know. Anyway, but so so that's all I guess I want to say to that question. Even though um, getting any more specific, I really don't.
That was pretty specific.
Yeah, but there I could bring examples, more examples
Okay,
of
well, maybe
everything.
there's a lot of other comments.
Right? No, I agree. That's what I was saying. Right. So I don't take any offense by that question, Rise Above, at all. Uh, yes, Rise Above says, after getting to know you better here, I can see where they manipulate and splice up your words. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you're seeing that, because they certainly do it. And he says that, Rise Above says, you spoke about how Doe was sweating and birthing the students, I believe. It was just clear that it was something important to you, and I felt they clipped you and just did you wrong. Oh, actually, I was talking about another event from that one where, yes, where we were. That was one of the other few times that Doe had us mill around the living room while Doe was on one part of where the living room went to other rooms in this big house in Arizona at the time, I believe. Uh, and he was sitting in a captain's chair. You know those what those chairs look like. They're a little tall. He had, I think, two captain's chairs. I don't know if he did one for tea, one for Doe, and maybe we had some for students too at one point. But not, you know, for everybody, because he wanted to be higher in order to see everybody's faces, not because he wanted to be higher than everybody. But in a meeting, he wanted to see everybody's face, and whenever somebody would be like hiding behind somebody else, you know they were dealing with something. I mean, maybe not all the time, but I know I wanted to be seen by Doe, so that was never something that I tried to hide from. Um, Not that I didn't have my own form of hiding at times, but it's not during a meeting. But um, so yeah, so that time Doe was he was sweating when it was my turn to walk up to him, and we were trying to be out of earshot, so we didn't want to hear what Doe was saying to that one student, but the way that Doe set it up was that he was visible to the students. They were milling around the big meeting room, and when they would see it, when they would know that they were watching to see when that student left, so that they would then walk up to there. And there was no competition to that. There were a few people that went up after I did, and so nobody was. I don't remember seeing any, you know, uh, competition for that. But because everybody was going to get a chance to, so it didn't really matter. And I was wondering what was happening. I didn't know what was going to be happening until I got standing in front of Doe, and I think he kissed me on the forehead, and and uh, yeah, he was like uh, emotionally, he was feeling emotions. I think he was feeling love of it for his students. In this tape, you can hear him at the end of this tape where he's fussing at it, a bunch of students. He says, "I love you," and he didn't say that often. I don't know if I ever heard T say that. And when he said it, he meant it. But he also, that love meant that he was going to try to help us get rid of our influences. And the tape really shows that actually happening on the spot with one of the students who I recognized the voice of as Sunodi, and she was among the ones that left in 1997. But she went through.
You mean she graduated?
She graduated, yes, in 1997, and she showed that she rose to the occasion during that meeting. But it wasn't easy for her. It was difficult for her, and you can see that, you can hear that. I mean, in the tape, and um, so yeah, just. Uh, but I wouldn't call that birthing the students during that time when Doe was, because we're not. You're not born until you've graduated. You're out of the human kingdom, and you're not subject to the lower forces of the human kingdom to try to change your mind, change your thinking, change your devotion, your commitment to. So I just wanted to, say that. Not that I mind you saying it that way, but I want to try to be as contextual as I can. Yeah, so I'm going to move on, I think, to, since there's nothing else in the chat happening, I'm going to move on to this tape, even though I've talked about a whole bunch of parts of this tape, uh, which is good. I'm glad because that's the way it works. That's the way it works best to me when there's practical examples being given um, that are being given to us in the tapes. And
Yeah, I was gonna turn the zapper on when the air conditioner's not going. Bug zapper.
yeah,
I don't want to turn it on while the air's on.
yeah, right, because it might, there's not too many bugs in here, are there?
Nah, there's
That's right, you chased it over there.
Well, I think that one actually left.
He actually went out, huh?
I think he did.
Smart. I guess you directed him because you did. You said, go out that door. I've seen Kathy do that before.
I was waving my hands at it too.
Yeah, right,
Just go because I
right,
said to.
right.
But I like it when it happens.
Yeah, right, it's
I'd
fun.
rather shoo him out the door than kill him.
Yeah.
Mouse, catcher.
So let's see. So yeah, this tape talks about the astronaut, that this is really an astronaut training program, and he describes uh, that you're learning to fit in with the members of the labs and not interfere with them. Because if you don't if you don't know how to control your mind, if you don't know how to control your thoughts and determine which are the negative thoughts, then you'll still potentially have that propensity in the mind that even graduates into next level membership. Like you don't become like perfect in every way because perfection is a process. And members of the next level are also growing. So they're also growing because they learn different ways of handling different circumstances from their own experience. So when the soul that we're calling Doe, when he did the task as Adam, he was tested and he got some things wrong. He got things that were off, that weren't from his older member's mind to do, to think and do. Okay, and so because of that, the older member knew that he would have to go through learning to recognize the value and the trust and the belief in his older member's mind as being the ultimate um, advanced mind from our perspective. Any member of the next level is an advanced higher mind than even the human that's the highest human. Jesus talked about that. But that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because it's a fact and I recognize it as a fact. because there's a kingdom level of difference between. So it can't be any other way. It's like saying that uh, every member of the human kingdom can potentially be, well, a god to every member of the animal kingdom. I don't know if that's the case really, because some animals may be more powerful than humans, so they can't be a literal god um, in terms of deciding who lives and who doesn't, and who they help and who they don't help. So the analogy doesn't work 100% probably, but it works enough. It works 99% probably. Let's see. So Joe starts this meeting talking about, well, I wanted to go to the astronaut thing more, maybe. Or let's see what else I should. Do you have anything that you can think of in the tape?
The influences.
Oh yeah, right. Identifying influences. Put that in the title, didn't we? Um, it is a matter of becoming more sensitive. And it was interesting that Tsunodi was brought up because Doe said that Tsunodi was very sensitive and very a number of complimentary things he said about Tsunodi before he uh, started talking about the lesson step that he felt Tsunodi needed to come up to recognize and work on and get rid of. And should I go look for what that was? Exactly, yeah.
You talked to Lagodi and
Okay. Because he spoke to Coyote first.
about the sarcasm.
Yeah, about sarcasm. That you, a student is hitting the nail on the head when they accurately identify their influence. So if you've got a problem with alcohol, then you've got an influence of alcoholism around you. It doesn't really matter if it's 100% accurate. That works to treat it that way because whatever it is that's stimulating those thoughts inside you do respond to the blockage of it, but you got to continue the blockage, and so that's where like if and the influences will and then Sam Odie was asked. I'll get to Sunodi, but I'm just going through the list here. That was when he brought up to sarcasm about Kadoti. And now, and now that Doe said that in this tape, I feel like I can recognize it when I didn't actually identify it as that precisely as sarcasm from Kadoti. I don't know if I was ever Kadoti's partner, so I probably didn't see certain things as much as other people. I was in the lab sometimes when he was, but he was mostly an in-crafter, so not all the time, but mostly I think. And so, I was in an out-of-craft task a lot of the time, so that meant I was doing a job in the world. And, so I was gone during the afternoon or early evening hours. cooking or whatever I was doing, in the world. But so I didn't see a lot of things that were happening during the day between students. Anyway, so then he asks Sam Odie, what about? Uh, he says to Sam Odie, give me the name of one. In other words, an influence that you have. In other words, that you entertain, that you allow to use your vehicle in thought or deed, and or deed. And Sam Odie says being stubborn. And Doe says, yes, that's true, but not the primary one. And then he doesn't make her, not make her, but he doesn't ask her to keep on guessing. In this case, he says, you act before you think. You speak or you speak a thought out. In other words, you speak something, uh, what you are doing, um, what you're going to say, and you're not thinking about it ahead of time. You're making a judgment before you thought it out. Uh, um, but that Sam Odie would bring up things in certain notes that we were instructed to write when things happened that were called suspected strikes, with the idea that 3 strikes and we were out of the class. That's where that came about. And I don't know if anybody was sent out of the class because of having 3 strikes or not. But I mean, it didn't. But it was showing us when they came up with suspected strikes, which happened while T was still in her vehicle. If anybody that wants to criticize Doe about changing things, it didn't change anything that was uh, not from T's mind. I think it's safe to say. Um, or if he did, he would change back, and it would have been a very less significant kind of thing. Or he'd bring us the update soon thereafter if he felt like he changed something. Like in the Beyond Human series, he talks about in one of the tapes that he had made some previous tapes with the same number, but he didn't like the things he was saying during that tape. He didn't feel like that was coming from T's mind, so he redid them. So Doe was doing the same things with himself as he was, and that's why he could be an example, even though he wondered whether he was a good example. In this tape, you can hear him wondering about being a good example to the students. But I don't know of any evidence of him not being a good example. Uh, um, so that was what, in other words, he said that with Sam Odie, influences have Sam Odie move so quickly, a vehicle move so quickly, um, it can appear to be quick and restless. And what else? And those said hyperness. And he brings up an example of once when Sam Odie answered the phone. Doe said that Sam Odie was so subdued, and and he asked her about it on the phone, in her vibration, in what she in the vibration that she had when she answered the phone, and she said she was trying to be controlled, and Doe wasn't sure she was hurt or something. In other words, even physically. Anyway, so there's a difference between being vital and alive and being quick to be out of control. Then after he talked to Branody, he spoke to Branody. And this is a difficult one, but it's really not uh, necessarily any more difficult for Branody than for the others to hear things about them. And for me, even to hear what the students were going through when they were put on the spot like that, which didn't happen often. I mean, recently in these tapes, it's happened quite a few times. It did happen, but never very often, very infrequently did it happen to where Doe was saying this in a meeting to individuals. But that didn't mean that he wasn't weren't saying things directly to those students from the beginning of the classroom. I believe they were. I got a few indications of that from them speaking directly to me, but it wasn't much. I was kind of like, I think I was like, I wasn't all there. I mean, so I mean, I thought I was, but I didn't have a concept that I wasn't there. But um, I wasn't very sensitive to things. And what I was going to bring up before about Tsunodi on that subject of sensitivity was we played this game in the campgrounds to where we all had tents. And all the tents were like configured inside a little tiny bit differently, like we had a different blanket and things like that. Each tent had two cots in it, two foam pads, sleeping bags, so that was all the same, even though it wasn't the exact same sleeping bag. And and there could be variations in even those things. And there were some other things that were standards. So the game was, but there were a bunch of things that weren't standard because the individual joined with certain, blankets and things like that. And so those things would be different. In each tent, wherever that student was, that had something that was different. And so the game was to go to the tent door and hold up the flap. Don't go inside. Just hold up the flap and look inside of it for 10 seconds. I think it was something like that. And then close the flap and then write down or say everything that you saw. So, but before you would do that, another student would also do the same thing. Okay? And Sunodi was the other student one time when I did it. And a number of students might do it before everybody, then everybody compares notes with what they saw and what they didn't see. And I don't mean compare notes because I don't think it was written down that I ever saw. But Tsunodi seemed to have a really keen sense of seeing a lot of things. I think like Kathy does. I think she sees a lot of things. I mean, I don't think, I know she sees a lot of things I don't. And I see things that I think she doesn't, but I don't think it's on the same uh, subjects necessarily. I mean, because there's things that I see that I think I see that I don't really see. That happens to me too. And I learned later that I didn't see the same or didn't see right as accurately as somebody else. And Kathy, sometimes sees things that she sees more accurately than I see them. And that's the way that we all are, I think, in degrees. And if we get overconfident with what we see and what we think and what we believe and what we uh, uh, and the way we express it with that overconfidence, that's the problem in terms of belief. When we think that our belief is an absolute belief, that there can't be anything wrong with my belief because I'm reading it right out of Scripture. The Scripture says that you got to do it this way, right? And so if you're not doing it exactly to the letter of the law, even talking in terms of using the same terminology, then there's something wrong with you. That you don't really believe it. You're making mistakes. You're misrepresenting what Jesus said. That's all examples that I've gotten hit with many times when I was talking with people more. I don't do that very often anymore. I mean, occasionally I still do on the internet, but I don't really gravitate to doing that unless it kind of, I happen to come upon it in a stream or a post or something, and I think about whether I want to say anything or not. Anyway, I've got a certain amount of sensitivity to certain things, and sometimes oversensitivity, sometimes undersensitivity, to the bigger issues behind what somebody says. I flubbed that recently, but I'm not going to go into the details of that, to where I didn't bring up the things that were the most important to bring up in a circumstance. Uh, because I do have a characteristic that's
It's really easy to,
after the
be,
fact, right?
well,
No,
and
go ahead.
that also in hindsight, but it's really easy. I just caught a thought, which I don't know if it's valid or not, but it's really easy to be off camera and out of a situation and, be keen or quick or whatever when you're not on the spot.
Hmm.
When you're looking in at something. And I'm not talking about this live stream.
Right.
So whoever needed to hear that, you know who you are. It's real easy to stand off camera and with a
Yeah.
blanked out screen
Right.
and think you might have said something better.
Right. And
But
coach
that's all
somebody
right.
else on how to say something better.
That's okay. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, and it's that applies to a lot of things. Yeah. So anyway, uh, so Dove starts asking Branody about an influence that Branody has gotten. Actually, he says at first, he says that Branody has gotten so much more control over so many things that she had for a long time, and that Dove says that he's very pleased with Branody, but he wanted to know from Branody whether Branody knew about a primary influence that Branody hasn't gotten control under control. And Branody said something, and I didn't hear it because the voices were so low on the students. Yeah, so I could hardly hear any of the students. We had it up all the way almost at one point. But so Doe says no, that whatever Branody says, I guess doesn't do any good to read that. Uh, but uh, but he said it was just as primary as what he spoke to Cadoti about. Branody didn't get it, and well, then Branody, I guess, did get it, and then asked her, "How are you going to work against it?" And Branody said, "Tell it to get out of here." And Doe said, "It's not going to do it. Are you?"
He wasn't talking to Sonody at that point.
No, he was still talking to Branody. This is where he said that. Yes, right. That's going to come in a couple of minutes. But he says just telling it to get out of here wasn't enough with the influence that Doe was talking about. And so then he goes into detail about it. Now, just a tiny bit of background was that Branodi's vehicle, when she joined the classroom, when I met her, she was in a group coordinator position in that group, like an overseer of the group. And she was partners with another student. Um, who's one of the ones that runs the Heaven's Gate website now, Mark. Anyway, and but that's not the point in this at all. But Branody, as far as I could tell, was in good health at that time in 1976. I think I'm referring to. Uh, no, I think she was. I don't know. I'd have to go back to see what her age was when she left, when she graduated, the age of her vehicle. Um, then I had to count backwards from then to know what age she was. But I don't think she was. She might have still been in her 20s, but I would say at the most the late 20s, at the least. Yeah, yeah, she still had some youth to her, yeah. And so anyway, so, but then uh, months later, maybe a year later, when I didn't really have any occasions to see Branody during that time because she was in a different group and we were split up into like 6 or 7 groups living around the Wyoming, uh, um, national forest between Laramie and Cheyenne. And and then, the way I remember it was in Kansas because we briefly left Wyoming one time because the winter was starting to hit us, and we wanted to get out from away from that. T&O did, and so we headed south, and we ended up going to Kansas, and that's when T&O bought us a whole bunch of tents, brand new Coleman tents, probably about 30 or so tents at that point, and some big ones for like a you know for a place to consume and together have a meeting. Anyway, so and we had a task of coming to a meeting that would be given outdoors by T&O together, which 99% of the meetings were T&O together. Um, so the ones that while T was in a vehicle, she was using crutches, or maybe just one crutch at one point, and then it was 2 crutches, and she was moving fine herself, but one leg was like bent up uh, because it. Now my understanding is that Branody in her youth, her vehicle had I think some degree of polio. Which affects the joints and affects the muscles. I think the muscles more than the joints. My understanding is correct. But I don't know if it's the same thing as muscular dystrophy. That I know affects the muscles more than the joints. Well, from my understanding of it, from people I know that had that condition. But uh, but hers was actually diagnosed later on as osteoporosis, and and she went to doctors within the classroom, not doctors in the classroom, because we didn't have any MDs in the classroom. We had, but went to, outside doctors. And she had prescriptions, Prozac, not Prozac, but what do you call that one with the P? Um, pro, Progesterone. She had that prescription for a while. But I didn't know much about all that. I'm just telling you what I do know. Huh? That's hormones. Trying to help her with, because it got worse, and it got worse and worse. And um, and so that's, but then uh, I think when T was still in her vehicle, but I could be wrong about that. Uh, it was thought that Branody would have more success working on the influences that were doing a number on her head because of her physical difficulties that were making her feel like she was failing, she was doing a poor job, and she wasn't helpful in the craft like others. Others could, on a move day, we could all pick up stuff and take it to the truck, and she couldn't do any of that. She was in a wheelchair, even or one of those little scooters. She had a scooter most of the time. Uh, Years later, after the event, I first recognized that she had these physical problems. So anyway, so she went to the situation to where she learned to do things for herself more and not be so under the gun of the influences and even the responses that classmates might have from their influences, because everybody's got influences. It doesn't mean that the classmates express those influences, but they don't have to express it. All they got to do is entertain the influence in their mind and not negate it and get rid of it, but allow it to remain there in their minds for it to be an influence upon Branody, going to the person that is the subject of that influence, though even briefly touches on something that he said that made me think that that was the way it works sometimes. That other people's influences don't necessarily go through the person that they're trying to influence uh, until, or if they can't get their way, then with that person that they're trying to influence, they go to somebody that they might be able to get their way with, that might be related to what that person was entertaining with that influence's thoughts, not even knowing that they're doing that because they're not necessarily sensitive to doing it. Judgments about people. I do it all the time. And when I do it and I know about it, I cut it off. I actually block it out of my mind. I erase it so that the sentence doesn't even finish itself. Now, sometimes I'm not as quick and the sentence does finish itself, and then I block it after that. I say, that's ridiculous to be judging that person by the way they look. Now, that would be different. I mean, to have a judgment about somebody because they've got a ugly look on their face, or they said something to somebody else that was cruel or something, or insensitive. That's not to me. That's not necessarily an influence, because the next level wouldn't have people being cruel to one another. Kindness is a member of the next level of members are kind. They are thoughtful. They are sensitive to each other. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. They don't want to accuse somebody of something that uh, um, uh, I mean, if it's affecting their task in a way that's negative, they're going to communicate with other members of the crew about it. Uh, if that person is asking, they may go up to that person and suggest to them that the way they were thinking and acting might not be from their older member's mind. And the person has the option then at that point to accept that and say thank you for it, and then see if the shoe fits. They don't automatically make the shoe fit. An influence would have some people make the shoe fit no matter what. I kind of would do that. And I could always kind of find a way to make the shoe fit, but sometimes it was a wasted effort that I didn't need to do, and Doe helped me understand that personally. But and I've talked about it before, so I just don't want to get into too much details now because I want to get on through more things. So anyway, so what Branody says, what Doe says about Branody, that anytime your vehicle caused your vehicle to crystallize in the joints and start to get more painful and difficult to operate, each time it uh, did that with pain, you could have stepped in with your mind, um, to prevent that crystallization by taking steps in that direction. And the steps would be um, because of how they would reduce your mobility. So by continuing to entertain uh, that influence that wants to completely destroy your vehicle, because there's influences that could thrive on that as well. Because there's influences actually that are assigned to work against people, not by the next level, even though the next level permits that to happen, and sometimes can give you a lesson that's designed to put you to the test. And they're doing that now in the human kingdom big time. And I don't know how much of it's automatic because humans have become, uh, so many have become uh, influenced by the lower forces. That doesn't make them eye and eye with the lower forces because they don't know that they're influenced. Like Doe said about Christians in general, that they hardly stood a chance of seeing through the amount of misinformation that they were fed, the deception, the deceit, the manipulation coming from the lower forces that are very sly, and we can't see them doing it. Father of lies, that's right, Kathy's saying from another room. And yeah, I mean, when you're saying something about somebody that's not true, you're lying. That's a lie. That's obvious, right? When you're saying something, there's also sin. The sin of omission is a reality as well. When you know something about something and you're not letting it be said, like in court or wherever, then you're also telling a lie by not telling what the truth is about that thing, if that's what is on the docket to talk about. You're holding back the truth. You're holding back what's real. Whenever you're holding back the truth and what's real, you're working to some degree for the lower forces.
What's the problem with providing information? If you don't have anything to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem. It's like, yeah, here you go. Look at it all.
Right.
Please look at it all.
Yeah, exactly. What are they trying to hide when somebody's trying to hide something from somebody else? They're trying to get their way. They're trying to win something. They're trying to, and they don't respect you. Right. They don't think you deserve to know why to know that information. You don't. They don't think that you're capable of handling that information, huh?
Trust him, then you're telling him that he's not worthy.
That's right. When you don't trust, Doe said in this tape, when you don't trust him, you're telling him that he's not worthy of your trust. I mean, you can say the same things about Jesus. Like if you don't trust the things that Jesus gave to people that are documented in the four Gospels, in the red letters, what he actually said, if you don't trust those words are coming from him because he made sure that his words would be available to people in the future. That's why they're trustworthy, because the next level saw to it with a lab crew that was in charge of making sure the humans couldn't diminish it all too much. They couldn't whittle away at it and break it up and make it into something that it was not. Retranslate it in ways that doesn't demonstrate the original understanding as well. By like taking the word God, okay, putting it in the English language in throughout the scriptures as the word God, when the word God wasn't used in the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic. So what is that doing? It's actually so what should it be? Well, if you look up the meaning of the word each time, you'll see that sometimes it's used like in Genesis, it's the word Elohim. And you find out that the word God actually can be a singular or a plural word. And it has to do with judges, magistrates. In other words, it's talking about a government that is above the human kingdom. And the next level is a government above the human kingdom. They're the creators of the human kingdom and the life forms on it. I mean, the other life forms on it. And the earth itself. However they do that. It's all technical, the way they do it. It's all physical. But it's not all physical, it's mental too. They created all the options. All the inventions came from their minds originally. Otherwise, we wouldn't know them. That's why it's not a matter of time before humans learn to do certain things. It doesn't work that way. If the next level wants humans to learn something, then they set the timetable on when they're going to start to give the biggest clues of that so that humans can come to see it as something that they can do technically, electricity and other things, videos, whatever it is. But space travel. So, so Brand already acknowledged what Doe is saying. Because Doe asked what the remedy was for that influence that was causing you pain. He says, and Brand already had a good response to it. I don't remember what it was. I couldn't hear her. But Doe says, absolutely. Is that going to be done in reverse? How it is? And in reverse, how is it? More words he wanted. And it's very obvious what kind of physical effort it requires. So then Annie Odie, I guess, raised her hand and she says something about, um, is that exorcism? I wrote it down as exercise, so that's why this was not at all even close to my words are so messed up. It's like ridiculous to even post them. Maybe I'm sorry about it, but I don't know. Hope I won't be sorry about it. But I'm doing it for my own use, really. But but I want to see some of the keyword. I want to show some of the keywords that I'm talking about here. That's not just coming from my mind. I'm making this stuff up as being in the tape. But and 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 so physical therapy was mentioned, but the power of words is very important. And when we avoid the strongest words, this is Anioti speaking. Some it won't do it. Then she says something about taking severe pain and mobility to relieve it. It will take pain and an increased tolerance for the pain. The influence doesn't like the pain.
That's
One
what
iota.
Doe was saying that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but I thought Doe was saying.
Yeah, I put this, I said this is what Anioti was saying, but that was not true. Because Doe was saying that, right, yeah. Let me go back.
It was a really good tape. It's a really good tape.
It is a really good tape. It's a very powerful
And
tape.
there's nothing wrong with listening to it and talking about it.
Right.
It's not against the law.
We've got,
Not doing anything wrong.
we got fair use. It's fair use. Totally fair use because I'm changing it because you're seeing my words, my way of saying it. Because these words aren't all the words that were in the tape. I'm putting in my words and intermingled in this. So I'm changing that original material.
Shake you the laptop. So shake the
Oh yeah, thank you. So they're going to have a big task if they want to try to use this against me. So Doe says that the influence of Branody doesn't mind pain because the influence doesn't feel pain. The influence is a discarnate. It it doesn't feel anything.
It probably likes experiencing that. There's
Yes, there are influences that like that.
plenty of influences.
Yes, and people can get to a condition to where they have, it was really interesting listening to this tape yesterday because was yesterday? Yeah, because
I think so.
I woke up with a shoulder that was in pain, and I was thinking I was treating it with the meditations that Doe gave us, but I wasn't treating it as an influence, and I was thinking, and the influence was trying to have me think as I was laying in bed dealing with this, awake, that this is what's going to happen to me now. I'm going to have my muscles are going to start failing me.
No.
I'm going to have muscular dystrophy. And I'm going to be, I won't be able to walk anymore. And, see, all those thoughts have no value at all. They're just complete negativity. They're not from the mind of a next level member. They're not from T and Do's mind. They're not from even the part of the mind that I have in me that's from T and Do's mind. They're not part of that mind either. Because there's not any truth to it. How can I know what's going to happen to me? How can I know that this isn't just, a muscle strain?
That's all it is.
That's all it is. And I've got to work it out. But also, the other part of it was I was thinking about, I think, well, it gets better by using it, it seems like. In other words, I can tolerate it. I can work around it, but I can also tell the influence to get the hell away from me so I don't have it building itself. Because what you believe, we get. So if I actually believe um, those thoughts would manifest themselves because the mind is stronger than the vehicle. Now, there's other aspects of pain and, problems with our vehicles and things that have to do with the genes and uh, where there's enough time to actually change something around. Um, and if there are the methods that, a person can even have the power of their mind to, to want to do, to believe in, there's all kinds of, but so the task is to treat it like an influence, try to get rid of it, and then try to work around it so it does you the least damage and uh, possible, and uh, and take it as a lesson to learn how to um, overcome even that condition, even if you don't change it. Like as far as I know, Branody still had some of that condition when she graduated. But she did come back to the classroom while I was still in the classroom, and or maybe not. Maybe she wasn't on the road with us. I don't know if she was with a group or not, because it would have been a little bit more difficult to do certain things, and she would have had less mobility. If we had to bring the cart everywhere, especially when we ran out of money.
She was in the chair.
Yeah, if she was in the chair, that would have been hard, a lot harder. And the task was to spread the information again in 1994, which was the beginning of the final spreading of the information. That's still happening because they gave instructions for that to continue to happen after they left. But the courts don't care about that. And apparently Mark and Sarah don't care about that either. What the next level thinks. They're blinded from it.
Let's not get into that, okay?
I'm not going to get into it any more than that. So, so Branody and Cadody and others could take a big reversal from this. Are you going to refuse to listen to negativity or not, and become an extension of our minds? Then he talked about Glenody. And he starts off by saying that Glenody is in a mail vehicle, by the way, which is a little funny thing about that he said later on in this tape about male and female vehicles. But he says he hasn't seen a brighter face than Glenody when Glenody's not dealing with influences. But he felt like a lot of times when an influence is present, he wants to walk the other way. So
Because Glenody's countenance was so sour.
because the countenance was so sour, right? And that sourness is a form of negativity. Now he didn't want us to put on a false Pollyanna positivity, but to have simply a pleasant uh, countenance. That somebody looks at you, they wouldn't think that you were angry, they wouldn't think that you were happy, or maybe they would think that you were pleasant, and so therefore you are happy. Because you're not going to be pleasant if you've got something bothering you. You're not going to have that degree of happiness because it's going to show on your face unless you're practiced at it really well. You know, but in this classroom, it would have been hard to get away with it for very long because there was a certain amount of ordinary, mundane boredom in a sense as far as the vehicles were concerned. There wasn't something to stimulate you to
Is there anything going on in the
be
chat?
alert, things like that.
Are you
Hmm?
We hadn't looked at the chat.
All right, I'll go to the chat. That sounds good.
Well, I thought, are we still alive?
Yeah, right. Well, you want me to look at that?
I'm sure we are.
Well, let's see. It says we've been ticking for 110 minutes,
But what is
and there's 8 individuals watching,
anybody talking?
and my vehicle is still moving, although I think there's quite a lag on the video part of it.
There was. We heard the with the
Yeah. So,
in the beginning. The chat.
so,
You popped out the chat.
so I did pop out the chat. So yes, there's somebody named STO space D in the chat, and he says, love the videos.
She.
They say, love the videos, yes. So thank you. I guess if you're talking about these that we're doing. And says, thank you for sharing the knowledge. So I guess you are talking about these. I often think about Star Odie. She had a beautiful soul. Yes, and I'm gonna say that she's very much alive. I feel like I know that. I can't prove it to anybody, but she is very much alive, and she does have a beautiful soul. And Doe recognized that all the students had beautiful souls, but the process in the task was to continue to beautify them by taking in more and more next level mind because the older members are the most beautiful souls in all respects. But we in the human kingdom, with limits, a limited amount of them, well, not a limited amount, but a smaller degree of their mind in us,
If any.
aren't necessarily sensitive to how great the older members' minds are because we don't know how to identify it. While I was in the classroom, I can honestly say I didn't have as much recognition as I learned later others had in in how beautiful Doe's mind and T's mind were. I knew it. I felt it. I still feel it. Okay, but uh, um, but feeling it is a process, huh? I still are feeling it.
That's how their minds are.
Oh, how their minds are.
You
Yes,
said were.
right. How their minds are. I'm still feeling how their minds are. And I felt it this morning. I don't remember what I was thinking about, but I was thinking about this tape, I think, and somebody in it. I was thinking about Tsunodi actually and the suffering she went through during the tape. And I remember, then I remember hearing Doe say that he loved Tsunodi and everybody else. But at first he went one by one. And I remember feeling his love. I felt it. It wasn't just I mean, I was tearing in my eyes. I'm not trying to say that to act like I'm some holy person or something. I'm just saying that it is something that we can identify with us. And it translates to people differently at different times. And some people in the human kingdom, have a real sensitivity to other people, and they can tear up, having a sense for their suffering and their, suffering for what they're suffering. That's a form of that, I believe. I think that's a form of next level mind, of suffering for somebody else. I don't think that's necessarily natural to a every human being. Maybe that's why there's some human beings that think it's worth it for their agenda to send people into war, to kill other people, and you know, uh, um, and to even brainwash them to do it. And I guess they have so little next level mind in those vehicles at that time that they can justify doing that. When somebody that's got a healthier share of next level mind at that time would never want to be in that position, wouldn't consider being in that position. At the same time, you don't know that compared to what is being waged or against them, compared to the mind that's working against them, even their whole lives, they may be doing pretty good relative to that. Because those space alien souls are more powerful souls, even though they lost a lot of their power when they left the classroom that they were in and their service to the next level, even if it was just elementary service of watching, observing what humans were doing on a portion of the planet. So we lose it if we don't use it. That's that old saying, right? Using it means, you know, when you feel that negative influence in your head, you see the words of that influence in your head. You're judging somebody. You're judging yourself. You're projecting a future that's a bleak future. You know, I mean, there can be a practicality to some of that. But to be lingering on that when it can be very it can be very not. I don't mean hypocritical. I mean it can be um, hyped. It's been hyped. Like, let's say the media hyped it. The media hypes things all the time. And you have people and the internet, and they're hyping what the media hyped a lot of times. They have limited understandings of things. We all have limited understandings of things. There's no question about it. But there are certain points of view that if we stick with it, if we keep on observing, I believe that the next level, if we want to know the truth about something, and even the right ways of doing something, I think the next level, from the next level's perspective, right ways, I think the next level has ways of helping us see that, even individually, especially if we want to know from them what the most right way of doing something might be. We might get some ideas. I mean, but during the classroom time, that wasn't the time to try to come up with new ideas on how to fix the human kingdom. I think Stan Odie, I think it was, maybe it was Glenn Odie too, though, but Stan Odie used to spend time thinking about how to correct the prison system, make a better prison system to where, maybe you do need to have somebody restrained from harming people, in some way, but how can you make it actually be something that is rehabilitative instead of, just training them to act more like an animal. Even and then some people that are in that prison system do benefit from it in a good way, to where they come out of that situation. Like Kathy met somebody the other day that seemed to be on that road of trying to make a better life for themselves after they were in prison. So nothing is a negative that can't be made into a positive. Even if we lose our vehicle in the process, the next level knows what we're doing. Not they like Jesus said. Even the sparrows. The next level keeps track of the sparrows, and how much more worthy are you of being kept track with? They have computer systems that do that. Not artificial intelligence, but the computer systems can cue them into the kind of thoughts that we have, our vibration, the frequency that we generate, the frequencies we generate with our mind and with our mind mostly, I think, but maybe the vehicles too. But I think more the mind is what is the next level. Has radio waves that goes out as radio waves, and the next level can pick up on them. And if they're of a certain vibration, the next level can say, okay, that one is asking for something. So we're going to tune into that person and see what they're asking about. And if we have a procedure to handle it, we'll give them a little bit of what they're asking about. If we have a procedure for that. If we don't have a procedure for it, then, but we have to act because we think that there's a certain kind of deadline for it. Let's say the human wants to leave their vehicle by their own hand. Well, the next level wants to know that, and so they want to, keep those from doing it that have a lot of lessons to learn still, and so they would want to immediately try to put something into effect to help that person recognize that, ask for help for somebody, you know, talk to somebody about it, you know, and listen to what they say, get professional help, things like that. The next level might be doing things like that. But they can also be actually giving that person ideas of what lesson there is to learn when something happens to them that they feel really depressed about. Let's say they lost all their money in the stock market and they want to jump off the top of a building like happened to people, in the 30s during the Great Depression, right? And
That was almost 100 years ago.
yeah, it was almost 100 years ago. Holy smokes. Getting to be ancient. Not really. And in the scheme of things, I'm a little baby. But but the vehicle, of course, is getting aged. But
Not that you were around in the 1920s or anything.
no, I wasn't around in the 1920s in this vehicle. I don't know if I was doing any kind of a task at that time.
Right, you could have been around in the 1920s.
It's possible.
But we,
The next level could have been preparing students by doing certain things with certain vehicles. Anyway, but yeah, there's a big party here tonight. We're not going to be part of it, but we'll be in the middle of it, so to speak, in the campground area. But so what's that?
I don't see anything.
I don't know. I think that was maybe just that part of the fabric. Let's see. I was going back to the chat. There's something else. Joseph Coates is here. He says, "I find the human kingdom to be rather disgusting." Uh,
Yeah.
well, I can understand you.
Me too, Joseph.
Uh, yeah, there's aspects of it for sure.
I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. It sucks here.
Yeah. Well, actually, T and O compared it to being a snake pit.
I guess it like we should be
But all the humans
grateful.
aren't snakes.
And what a time to be alive, right? I mean,
That's right. And what a time to be alive. So, I mean, yeah, there's disgusting things happening, for sure. No question about it.
insane.
And there's been disgusting things happening for a long, 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 long time. In fact,
That
we
doesn't
don't know of a
negate.
time when there wasn't disgusting things happening.
Right.
But
So,
that
like,
doesn't
imagine
justify
if we
it.
were living in the Black Plague, y'all. Like, how disgusted will we be then? The Black
A
Plague.
different type of
The,
disgusting. Yeah.
like, millions of people dead, like, everybody dead in your town except for 20 people.
Yeah.
That's pretty heinous.
Yeah, but think
That's
about,
terrible.
see, I would say that
Oh
levels
my
of
god.
disgust to me are with the prevalence of dishonesty. I mean, in the big ways. I'm not talking about, stealing a piece of candy out of the store. I'm not encouraging that either. But
Don't do that.
I'm not saying, I'm not treating dishonesty like that, or certain, like, white lies, they call them, right? That they're
Like, how are
not
you
really.
doing today? I'm fine.
Yeah, how are you doing today? I'm fine. And when you're not really fine. But you want to, at least at that moment, you want to be fine at that moment. So it's not
Well, you're not gonna
dishonest.
tell a complete stranger
Right.
all your
Like
business.
yeah, right. And so that's
Or do I
that's
look
not a
bad in
lie.
this dress? No, baby, you don't.
But there's ways of saying things, also that let people know that, all things considered, I'm feeling pretty good. That's one thing, one way to say it. That,
A lot of people say I can't complain.
yeah, I do that too. I say that too sometimes. I don't say it the same way twice. And Kathy and I, because we deliver people to their jobs and stuff, as our way of making sticks to pay for our food and clothing and lodging and everything.
We don't buy much clothes.
Uh, we say that to a lot of people every day. Sometimes like 10 people,
Or
not a
you.
lot, but 10 people a day maybe when we're working. So and we do get a lot of it. It doesn't take a lot to have some interface with people that's really interesting.
Yeah, I love being an Uber driver.
Yeah,
Honestly. I mean, it has its moments that it's not good, but
right. I mean,
if
so,
you have to make sticks, like, it's, and you like driving and you like talking to people and only for like 10, 15 minutes, perfect.
and you can deal with not making too much money.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna you can get like ahead though. If you're like single and you don't have like
Mortgage and,
anybody at home waiting around, you can go work for, I think it's 12 hours a day.
yeah,
If you pick the right 12 hours, you can make $200-$300 a day. You are gonna work 12 hours a day. You are going to pay gas. You are gonna put
yeah.
wear and tear,
There's things
but you
that
can.
variables in that, right?
Yeah, but you
For
can.
sure.
If you're in a
Occasionally you
decent
can.
city, like in Cincinnati, you could make that.
Yeah, but then you'd have to work the
That's
the
why I said you're gonna
the,
have to work
the
12.
bar hours and everything
Yeah, you're gonna
else.
have to work 12 hours a day.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do
So if you want to make money on it, you can.
because you get all kinds of problems when you work with the people that are getting drunk.
I know I did.
Yeah, Kathy did it.
Did it for several years. It can be fun.
No. So, but in my view, for whatever it's worth, of what is disgusting about the human kingdom is that the snakes in it are the space alien souls.
It's so broken.
And everybody that they influence and they become, and those individuals that become extensions of their mind in the human kingdom, they end up being the most disgusting parts of the human kingdom, in my way of thinking. But that also becomes part of what's normalized in the human kingdom because it's throughout the human kingdom. There's, the people that are running the show in these countries are a lot of times They don't know it, but they're under the control of the space alien souls uh, that aren't invisible. Maybe the soul has its invisibility, and they can. Uh, I don't know. I don't doubt that maybe they can still uh, show up to people. You know, be right next to them um, to influence certain people to do certain things or think a certain way. That's what I mean by that. Um, but by and large, I think they stay in their spacecraft and they can project what they want to project to the human kingdom. Um, I'm not going to go through all the examples of that projection, but certainly building weapons to kill humans with is a part of that projection. Not that the space aliens want to kill humans. I don't think they necessarily do. But I wouldn't put it past them to want to keep resources from being depleted. And so you hear all these bigwigs that I'm not going to name the names of talking about decreasing the population. It's not their business to decrease the population. Humans don't have that capacity to 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 have the overview of where the population needs to be decreased or not. When the next level wants to decrease the population, they will do it, and it'll be by the next level. Even though humans now are trying to take credit for the things that we all knew for decades and centuries were being done by the next level, or what we call God, or what people that don't believe in anything above the next level think is just like some kind of automatic system within a system that developed itself into systems that work together or don't, in all different manifestations of that. It's almost absurd to think that that could all come about random by random, flip of the dice. Happens so many times, or, random development. And yes, there is a case for random development, like using AI is a case for random
But
development.
like life is something a little.
Yes. Yes, life is a lot different
If
than
you look
that.
at all the other, places that exist, planets, whatever, they don't quite have what the Earth has.
What was I? Were we both listening to something about the medicines recently? Or was Doe talking about something about medicines and substances?
I don't know. I've listened to so much stuff.
Yeah, no, recently. I don't remember right now, but
Uh, that's what I'm saying. We've listened to so much, and
the human solutions can be solutions, but what Doe talked about in terms of the human drugs that are made, that they all have side effects. And so there's no side effect, I don't think, to running off an influence that's telling you you're going to die, or telling you that your sickness can't be fixed, or it can't be you can't still have a quality of life. I mean, if a person gets to the stage where they don't have any more quality of life and they're just living off of tubes and drugs to keep them out of pain, uh, you know, um, they should have the right to leave by their own, like, the euthanasia program. That's passed in Oregon and other states have it, you know. So that's not a bad thing in that situation, in those situations. But um, but the way that humans are doing that now, they're trying to make it so that even if you're not happy with, you're bored with life, like in Canada. I saw a story about how they were trying to put that into effect in Ottawa, to where somebody could be assisted to leave their vehicle by the government because for no other reason but that person's tired of living. So they're depressed. So they just don't want to live anymore. When, the government shouldn't be involved in that, because how can the government know that? Oh, why can't they, maybe they can approach the next level, can help that person in some way recognize that that itself is a lesson to learn. To think that there's nothing to learn, still learn and do in the human kingdom. There's always something to learn and do in the human kingdom that the next level would approve of. I think it's safe to say. There's an ant crawling on my laptop, and he's going over there.
They go so fast. It's a big one, a tree one.
Yeah. Okay, Charlie.
His name's Charlie. Where'd he go? Did he take off?
Yeah, my stepdad, Charlie, is using that vehicle.
To expand.
Anyway, I'm going to go back to the chat. I don't know if I got off the track, but come on, Ant. Now he wants to be on the mouse when I'm using it. Now he's down. He was crawling on my leg before.
That's. He's probably gonna come right back. He wants help. He wants to go outside. That's why they come to us.
Well, you're in charge of that.
I know.
I probably would have squashed him. I admit it. I would have squashed him. What we said in the classroom when we did that was that we were accelerating them. And maybe there's some truth to that on some crazy, spirit level, mind level, or, group mind level. We don't know the design of all this.
I think there's value to being compassionate to something that you could just kill.
Right. And Doe showed that.
And that it takes effort to save. Like especially an ant.
Well, Doe did show that to us when I was cutting the boughs of the tree. And he didn't want to cut the boughs that weren't threatening the tent that was being filled with, that the bough was getting filled with snow when it would snow, when we were camping in the winter in Provo, the mountains south of Provo.
You talked about that.
So I'm not going to go through it anymore. But so Joseph says, oh no, wait, Albert says, do we honestly hate this world? Yeah, see, I don't, I do and I don't. I'm like mixed about that. Because I know there's people in the world that are growing and are trying to do their best. So I don't hate them.
There's a lot of beauty in this planet.
Yeah, and the planet itself is a nice planet. It's a beautiful planet. So I don't hate the planet at all. And Doe felt like the planet was a beautiful planet also. But that it needs some refurbishing because humans have, put all that space junk into around its orbit and done a lot to the water supply and air supply and polluted a lot of places and dumping their toxins where they shouldn't be dumped, killing fish and stuff. And
is there another thing in the chat?
Yeah.
It is getting a little late, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Have you guys ever seen an anteater? I think I did at a zoo.
Yeah, that might be the only time.
I did. I saw an anteater at a zoo in, I think it was in Arizona.
I've watched.
Or maybe it was Texas.
I've watched videos on them because they're interesting creatures. They're long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're weird.
They actually are like a vacuum cleaner, right?
Or maybe they stick their tongues out. Maybe that's what it is. They're sticking their tongues out.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know.
So just one at a time, or maybe they can get a bunch of them at one time.
Right, I think they can get a bunch.
Or they're actually drawing in their breath and sucking them into their mouth, like a vacuum. I don't know.
I think that's how it is on the
I'm sure some scientists know that. know what they're doing there.
Well,
That's the kind of thing that,
it's easy to Google.
yeah.
It's easy enough.
Well, folks, I think I could go on and on, but I
What
think I've
time?
covered a lot,
Yeah.
and we want to have another hour or so before we have to hit the sack in order to get up to work tomorrow. And a living vacuum cleaner, right? Says HF Albert. Yeah. So, uh, anything else? Nothing else. Good night, folks.
Oh, that's a vacuum.